had the whole world at our feet, watching seasons change. Our roads were lined with adventure, mountains in the way couldn't keep us from the sea. Here we stand, open arms. This is home where we are, ever strong in the world that we made. I still hear you in the breeze, see your shadow
Good evening, everyone, and let's get going with this live stream. I'm just going to move the microphone around. Okay, can you hear me? That's the big question. Yes, I know you can hear me because I can hear myself on YouTube as well. So I guess we can get going with random stuff. Hi, welcome to my stream. And today's stream is going to be about fuzzing again. Well, this time is going to be about network application fuzzing approach-ish. So when I previously showed fuzzing and how to fuzz stuff, the basics, I basically showed how to fuzz an application which opens a file and the file is mutated in some way and the application while processing the file basically crashes. Now, this is quite easy to do. I mean, mutating the file is not a hard task, then running in an application is not a hard task, and genetic fuzzing takes some more work, especially if you want to have it distributed, but in the end it's it's like, as I explained, it's doable. Now, fuzzing a network application is a little different, because a network application usually is chatty. It would like to send you some data as well to the, mutator, right? And it would like to receive some data after sending you data, which is somewhat reliant of the data it sends you. And so how do you mutate such a thing? How do you fuzz such a thing? Well, there are several approaches and I wanted to show them to you. One of the questions would also be, how does the genetic fuzzing fit into it? So yeah, these will be the topics I will discuss today and perhaps, hopefully, even showcase something written on Scratch, like from scratch. Anyway, today's moderator is KrzaQ. KrzaQ is, his nickname is somewhere here. Yes, here. If you have any questions at any time, then ping KrzaQ, and he will let you know, he will let me know using magical ways, probably related to these earphones, that, there's a question. And I will try to answer it. Unless I cannot, then I will just say we run out of time or something silly. So one more thing I wanted to show you actually is something I've written in JavaScript. I should have written it ages ago, but I've written it yesterday. I spent, a couple of hours basically. I went to sleep around 3 a.m. due to it. And it's finally the donation pop-up, so let's see if it actually works. Does it work? Yes, it works. Perfect. You should see it in a second. So this thing will pop up if you send me a donation. I was supposed to have it ready ages ago, but yeah, sorry. So thankfully it is done now. The animation is, as you probably may know, is basically inspired by Syndicate Wars, a great game by Bullfrog, which was released ages ago, and I really like the laser effects. And there are also some bugs, like you probably saw that the word wrapping isn't really working too good. That's because it's not implemented. Yeah, it's something on my to-do list, so perfect. So let's see what we can chat about. Oh, thank you for the donation. That's actually a real donation, so thank you for helping me test my system, Darkstar. Appreciate it. That being said, that thing below is still being updated manually once a week, so is the next item on the to-do list. The thing below, I mean, is not the questions, it's the top 10 donators. Okay, so a question from Przemysław. On my Lenovo laptop back in Intel Management Engine driver was causing screen suddenly blacking out some time ago. But with current driver, it's fine. How is it possible? I don't know. There might be several reasons due to it, but if you're asking for specifics, like in this exact case, on this laptop, why is this happening? I obviously have no idea. I might guess. So my guesses, which would be partly random, partly educated, would be that given that the Intel Management Engine is actually using the built-in graphical card to when capturing the screen. It's something Honorary Bot talked about, I believe, on his live streams, on my live stream. Then, well, if there's a bug in it somewhere there, then it will obviously make the screen misbehave, and that's my best guess I have. But about specifics, that basically, well, would require debugging, and I have no idea, so yeah. Sorry for not answering your question in the end. Okay, so we probably should get some fuzzer and well, we should get a couple of things. Let's switch to desktop. Oh, before I get to it, so as you know, I'm still experimenting with a form of my live streams, and one thing which I would like to get back to doing is actually doing some news, like what's happening on the scene. And so I started noting some articles which I read or news I've seen, and I will pass them on really quickly at the beginning of the live stream. So let's get going. First of all, this is amazing. This is what I really like, what I expected to happen ages ago, and it happened now. A keyboard app, which, you know, you can install a keyboard application on your phone, right? So when you have your phone, you can basically type on it, and there are several, or swipe or whatever, there are several applications which emulate the keyboard in one way or another, and one of such applications logged all the input data which you put in it and sent it to an upstream server, and then it leaked. So yeah, that's unfortunate for the users. That being said, it's also a good reminder to us that if we install a keyboard application and the application says something like, oh, if you give access to this application to your email, we can actually scan your email and help you predict the words better which you type. If such a question arrives, then you answer, no, I'm not giving you this permission, and this might save you some problems, especially that, you know, in such listings, the things you type might be passwords and so on. So, and especially, like, for example, in your email, there might be some passwords from which you didn't change from some websites. So you don't want the same information to leak. And I guess I'm going to give you a link to the article so you can read the details on it. Next, NSJail 2.3 was released by Jagger, and yeah, like, check it out. If you're using it for sandboxing, you probably might want to take a look at it. It's basically one of the go-to sandboxing apps on Linux which use namespaces, at least for me. And then, well, this is all around internet today. I think I got the link from, I don't know, 5 different people. So, first from Necratal, I believe, so thank you. This is a puzzle. Well, a puzzle in a true sense, not like a CTF or wargaming challenge, but like a puzzle. So there might be not only technical things, but also non-technical things which you have to do. And you can win 4 bitcoins, well, almost 5 bitcoins, and as you know, it's a lot of money. That being said, this was published 2015, so yeah, it wasn't solved for 2 years. If you look on the internet, there are actually like forums which discuss, like, really long threads which discuss this puzzle and how to approach it. So yeah, you might want to take a look, and you might also give a whack. After all, well, 5 bitcoins, that's a good price for a challenge. So okay, that's it. Let's see if I have Clang installed somewhere, so if I have any fuzzer which I could use to do today's showcasing. Oh, there's already another question. What phone does Gunvale have, iPhone or Android? I have a couple of Android phones. I actually never used iPhone, so I have no idea about iPhone. Okay, so let's start with creating some server application which we want to fuzz. I'm going to call it serve, I guess. This will be it. Let's see the font size, it's a little small. How good that I can actually, like, control scroll it to make the font bigger. Okay, and I would also use something which actually does the chatting, right? So a library which does the sockets for me. I have it somewhere, so let me find it. Alright, this says moved. Okay. Good. Okay, so I believe on my GitHub there's a library called netsock, which I'm going to use. Is my old library, which I am not going to recommend, but it is on my GitHub. So if we go to my github.gnavail, and there should be something called net. Yeah, it's here. Yeah, ta-da. Well, I guess I can give you a link. All the files will be uploaded, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to use this library to basically create a server application, and the server application which will be what I would like to fuzz today. And then I'm going to show you how to build a harness around it, which should allow a fuzzer to basically interact in a sane way with the application. Because what you probably don't want to do is you don't want to do actual network fuzzing. That being said, you can do it. So let's just discuss this concept for a second. Sorry. So let's assume that we have a server application, and we have so this is like the server application, and we have a client application, and we want to fuzz the server application. So in a normal setup, what you would do is you would actually hook a debugger or whatever other monitoring tool you are using in your fuzzer on the server, and then you would have a mutating HTTP, TCP, IRC, whatever proxy. So basically like a network proxy, which is mutating, so a mutator. And the client wouldn't connect to the server, it would actually connect to the mutator, and the mutator would connect to the server, and therefore if the client is a proper application, the client would send a proper protocol. So let's say it would send like PAX, because why not? And then the mutator would change one letter at random, for example, and then would send it to the server, and the server would try to process this PBX and maybe crash, maybe not crash, and then reply with something. Let's say it would reply with M letter, so the mutator gets the M letter, and mutator, this side, the mutator doesn't actually fuzz anything, well, mutate anything, because we are not fuzzing the client application. If we would like to fuzz the client application, we would obviously mutate this way instead of the other. So this is like the most normal way you fuzz a network application. The problem here is that basically, how do you fit genetic fuzzing into it? And well, you can obviously do it, right? You can for each time, for example, you get so let's restart this little. So we have some data file, because genetic fuzzing mostly operates on data files, right? And the data file contains well, bytes, right? And it would contain, I don't know, let's say 10 bytes of input. And the mutator would actually read the required amount of bytes from this file and mutate them in some way, and also, store the mutated version. And for example, the first packet which comes in is actually like 3 bytes, so it would, I don't know, change these bytes to the 3 bytes it has in the file, so it would use the 3 bytes at the beginning, and then it would be sent here, and the mutator, for example, would store the result in some new like sample file, right? And then it would like another packet comes in from the client, so the mutator again reads, for example, 5 bytes, stores the 5 bytes here as well, and sends them to the server, and so on and so on. And at the end we get a file which we cannot really easily retest on the server, because if we would want to retest it, we would have to well, still run the application for the mutator, because the mutator knows how to behave, and the client doesn't really read this type of file, so you cannot get this data file, data blob, and give it to the client application, because the client application doesn't understand this format. So you would have to create basically another application which basically replace the this, but again, the information on the length was taken from the client, blah blah. It gets complicated, so I usually don't do it. That being said, it's doable, obviously. And another thing which you have to take in mind here is something which I will actually not take in mind during the design, which I will show you in a second, is network timings. Basically, when reading data from the file, it doesn't really matter how fast you read it. Well, you always read it with constant speed as far as fuzzing is concerned, obviously. Obviously, you are not reading it with constant speed, but as far as fuzzing is concerned, you are reading it with constant speed. Now, that's not true for networking, right? Because, for example, let's maybe scroll this again. So, for example, if we have one packet which is to send, which is 2 kilobytes, right? So it's 2 KB, and that's a little more than usually a networking window. So the packet might be split somewhere here, let's say, in half, give or take, maybe a little more on this side, but that doesn't matter. And then this part is sent, and then the other part is sent. And even on TCP level, if you, for example, send actually 2 packets, right, well, each packet 1 kilobytes, the server might send them both at the same time, or it might send first this one and then only later this one. And the application will, depending on the network latency, how frequently the application is polling for data from the kernel, might first read. Well, it will read the data in order, right? But it might read, for example, all this packet, and then half of this packet, and then half of this, the remaining, well, all of the remaining stuff. So suddenly you also have to operate on the concept of, well, data blocks have sizes, and also depending how fast they arrive, the server application might behave differently. For example, if all of this arrives instantly, it will be received using one resv operation, right? Sorry, receive. Yeah. However, if there is some delay here, for example, here's a delay, and then here's a delay, it will be read using probably 3 receive calls. And that also might change the way the application behaves at some time, so this is also something you might want to take into account. Now, I'm actually not going to take this into account. I'm going to totally ignore the timings in the harness I'm going to create. Okay, I see there's also some questions. So, what exact application you want to fuzz? I'll create something from scratch, like a really simple server, because for reasons I've mentioned, well, I usually mention on my stream, is I would prefer not to fuzz any real application, because that I might actually find some odd days, and I would prefer to, you know, responsibly disclose them to the maintainers, give them 90 days to fix it, and only then disclose it. So yeah, I would prefer not to risk actually fuzzing a real application. Okay, what do I think of the black phone? What's a black phone? I don't know what's a black phone, so I don't have an opinion on it. It's this? Is it something like a BlackBerry? My black phone. What's a black phone? No, seriously, what's a black phone? Dear readers, okay, yes, I know. Already sent you a donation. Smartphone built to ensure privacy. Oh, cool. Okay. I guess I like the idea. The question is who did actually review it, and if it has been reviewed, and so on. So I don't have any opinion due to actually not knowing what is it. Cool. So let's get back to actually creating the server application in that case. And what I'm going to do, okay, no, wait, the concept. I was supposed to tell you the concept. So the concept will be that we have the server application, and I'm actually going to write another part for the server application, which is usually called the harness. So harness, yeah. And the harness is basically a piece of code which totally doesn't interact with any network, just jumps straight to any parsing code which is in the server and calls it. So it might emulate the network, for example. And the harness is what will allow me to actually interact with files. So as you know, most of the genetic fuzzers use files. So yeah, the harness will allow me to interact with any data file, and there will be no client application whatsoever here. So I will have a file, and I will somehow use the bytes in this file to emulate the network packets which I sent to the server. Now, how I'm going to do it is I will try to make it somewhat friendly for the fuzzing, for the fuzzer itself, for the genetic fuzzer. So it will probably be like a simple protocol which will say this size of data, and like, for example, there will be a byte which tells you the size of the data, and then there will be the data, and then again the size of the data and some data. So I will split the data into packets, but I will absolutely not tell the genetic fuzzer that there is such a protocol, and the genetic fuzzer will create files which are actually meeting this protocol anyway, because the protocol is super simple. So yeah, that's about it. Cool. So that's the idea. So first, let's create the application. What sort of application should be? It should be really easy, a really easy application, but it still should require some back and forth with the fuzzer. Oh, client. Well, doesn't matter. Both. Netsoc.h. And yes, this usually requires changing the code of the application or actually doing some hooking, but that should be fine. So Python network support is great. Why use C or C++? Because, well, it doesn't make too much sense fuzzing Python applications, because you will not find memory corruption bugs there, and I actually wanted for this example to be somewhat close to real life. So I actually don't remember how to use my own library. Perfect. I'm going to move my header file here, and yeah. So I'm going to probably run it on Linux, but regardless of this, I need to run init networking, so netsoc. Okay. This actually does nothing on Linux. On Windows, it initializes the WinSoc library, I guess. Let's call it a library. Now I need to create a listening socket, so like a server socket, and the server is supposed to listen on the port 1337, because, well, this is a hacking stream, right? So now for all eternity, please actually try to accept a connection, and to accept a connection I need to call accept. Here we go. Okay, and this creates a client. So this is a client now, and the client we can write like something like yeah, something connected. That's fine. Okay. And get string get port. Okay. Oh no, you will see my localhost IP. Am I doing something else here? I will actually support only one connection, because it doesn't matter, and adding some threading or some other stuff would only make me type longer. So yeah, so let's go with one connection. I'm going to see if this compiles. I told you I'm going to run it on Linux, so let me grab a Linux console. Here we go. Let's try to compile it. cpp test cpp. Okay, well, w extra. I guess I should make some mistakes, so probably I shouldn't compile it with this. Yeah, let's not do it. And it doesn't work. Perfect. Why doesn't it work? So no, seriously. So I created a socket, and then I told it to listen on all. It's probably wait, no, this is something else listening on my system on this port. Probably some backdoor. That's fine. Yeah, when in doubt, as trace. Okay, it tries to connect. Why does it try to connect? I did tell it to listen. It should not try to connect. Am I in the correct directory at all? So it creates this, then tries to do a connect. Perfect. Now I've seen everything. Why are you even trying to do a connect? Listen all does a bind. Okay. Just to be sure. Maybe there's something else here. So let's do -o asdf and grep. Or just less asdf. I guess this is becoming a debugging stream, isn't it? Yeah, there's no listen. Okay. No, seriously, am I really in the right direction? Directly, I'm going to do this. And now, but why? Oh, I know, because I'm stupid. You probably already told me on chat, right? Yeah. Because I created two files, I created a test file and I created a surf file. Which one is which? Okay, so I'm removing the test file because that's not what I'm wanting. I want the surf file. Yeah. Figures. Sweet. So now, getting back to on track. This one was IP, right? How about file name? Yes, file name is the problem, or was the problem. Yes, this actually works. Surprise! Perfect. So now I have this, and now I actually should create a new console here. So let's do it. Okay, and I will be using to test the application, like, you know, standard tools, which would be netcat in this case. So nc-v, and my local host address, and 31337. And yeah, it works. Then I'm going to write something, and it doesn't matter if I write anything because it actually tries to accept indefinitely, so that's fine. Now, can I actually do it again? Yeah, that's fine. I was wondering if I have if I have this, but I do have it, so that's fine. But actually, if it wouldn't be there, then the kernel would actually disallow listening on the same port really quickly one time after the other due to, well, basically security reasons. So it's like this. But if you have a daemon running from one user on some port and the daemon dies for some reason, then any other user can create an application which starts listening on the same port. So let's assume the port is like 8080, because the port 80 doesn't work because you need actually root to be able to bind to port 80, or you need the proper caps, like capabilities, but yeah, like port 88 is a good example. So what the kernel would like to prevent is kind of prevent race conditions here. And there's also some other reasons to the way networking works, but yeah, in the end, I don't find it useful in my case, so I just turn it off. Okay, so I have this. Now I should probably chat a little with it. So what protocol am I going to propose for today? I will want the protocol to, well, be simple, right? So let's do it like this. I will first read up to 2 bytes and have 2 different behaviors depending on these bytes. So, or maybe I should read just 1 byte. But I'm going to call it another function. It will make it easy on myself. Yeah, I will make it easy on myself. So I will create another function. The function will be called void handler. Yeah. It will take the socket in. Install it as, and here I'm going to do perfect. Now I'm going to read. How do I read or listen? Should I make mistakes? Yeah, let's do some mistakes. I'm going to make stupid mistakes. So I'm going to use read. I usually would use read all. Read all actually waits for the amount of data I give it. However, read and receive in all normal libraries reads at most this data. So if some data arrives, for example, I want to receive 1 kilobyte, but if only 1 byte arrives and then nothing else for a discrete moment, then it would actually just return the 1 byte which already arrived. And if you don't check the return value, which is here, which I'm not going to do, then you basically are using some uninitialized memory. So I know, let's call it buff and let's give it 4 bytes, because why not? So I'm going to read into the buffer 4 bytes, no, 2 bytes as I mentioned, maybe even 1 byte. Yeah, let's read 1 byte, 2 bytes. And now if let's maybe put this in a loop. Okay, and let's furthermore do something like this. If buff 0 is equal to q, that's actually like will be just break, like, yeah, that's it, thank you, good game. And here I should probably close the socket as well. So how do I disconnect? Oh, so that's actually C, and that's actually C as well, so that's fine. Handler C. Oh yeah, I just noticed it to Foxtrot, but thank you for your message. Now, yeah, so this is fine. Otherwise, let's do if this is A and this is B, then actually go to handler and AB. Otherwise, if it's X and Y, then go to handler X and Y. And but first, no, is it? Yeah, that's fine. I probably wouldn't be using global variables normally, but I am going to use global variables because I every time I'm going to basically one-shot it, or am I going to use? Let's do like this. Let's create a class, and I'm actually going to create an object for it, so there will be no global variables after all. So like context, let's call it context. It's probably not going to be a class, but it's going to be a struct, but I don't care. Okay, and bool is initialized. Okay, and I'm going to create a context on the stack because why not? CTX, and all these handlers will actually take my CTX to it. Okay, now AB, let's say this is going to be like initialization init. I don't know how to spell it anyway. and this is going to be like do some work. And what I will expect from the client to first go through the initialization and then go and do some work. So the initialization is going to be easy because this is supposed to be an easy target. Let's do here perhaps read some data into it. Okay, that's quite a lot. Let's do it a little, yeah, like this. If buff is equal condition is always false, and if so, because I did this. Yeah, thank you. No, I just removed it. Okay. This is like a standard test for, you know, for genetic fuzzing. And if that happens, then is initialized is true. That's actually ctx dot. Otherwise it's not, and we just return there. And here we will only do stuff if it's actually initialized. So void handler, I can just copy. Okay. Now, if it's not initialized, so ctx is initialized is actually false, then I'm just going to return. And otherwise, let's do some. What are we going to do here? We're going to do some weird stuff. Let's do weird stuff. I'm going to read 8 bytes, up to 8 bytes again. So read buff 8. And so this read is actually not going to find any bugs because, as I said, I'm going to ignore timings, network timings, so it will get all the data it needs at the same time. And like some output buffer, which is going to be 16, and this is going to be as printf output buff. This is like a buffer overflow and a format back in one. You probably cannot make a bigger mistake than this. Then I'm going to write, I'm going to use write all this time to output the output, which is at most 16 bytes. This is also an information leak here, by the way, because I'm not initializing these. So that's like half of the possible memory corruption errors in one function. This is cool, this is cool. Okay, so this should actually work and give me something to work with. I might also want to yeah, here do something like this. Yeah, you probably shouldn't do this in production code, what I'm doing here with the indentation levels. So just return. Otherwise, if this is not correct, then yeah, basically just yeah, but I didn't do too much stuff here, did I? So okay, I'm going to change it again. What I want to do is I want to do a quick exit, but I can do a quick exit here since I actually already got a flag. So ctx is initialized as false, actually then it's just return. Yeah, that's it. So we need the initialization to happen, and again, this is a decent example. Not great, but decent. Sorry, I want G++. Format, yes, I know, but no, I don't need you to tell me about it. Format security, thank you. So, okay, it compiled. Let's see if it works. So, A, nothing happens. B, why does nothing happen? It should actually, oh, so I'm reading to Q is quit. Okay, Q works. Then I actually have to send AB for it to, yeah, AB test for it to actually initialize, and now it reads the data so I can crash it using this. And I didn't crash it because I failed at something else, so let me fix it. Okay, and it didn't crash because unlucky. So let's crash it like this. No, seriously. I'm lucky enough that it didn't crash, or did it connect again? Pretty sure I have stuff in my buffer. So let's try it again. X, Y, no, it's, okay, it works. That's what's important. I'm not going to play with. So, okay, now I need a fuzzer, so let's find a fuzzer. Okay, but where's the question? What is port knocking? Port knocking, okay, let's do a quick digression on it, because why not? Port knocking is basically where you have a server, and the server has some daemons running on it, listening, like a SSH daemon, for example. SSH daemon, oh, perfect, SSH again. And SSH listens, you know, usually on port 22, and there are usually some bots scanning this port 22. And so you could put it on another port so that the bots don't know it's there, like, I don't know, 3434, because why not? But using a port scanner you can still find it. So another way to kinda hide it, which is quite decent actually, is to keep it here, but in your firewall add some magical script or magical rules which say that this port is closed and denied to every IP. But if somebody comes and actually sends a UDP packet to like this port with, I don't know, like 1234 port, and then it the same IP sends a packet to 444, and then the same IP sends a packet to 800, and so on and so on, then actually add that IP to a whitelist of IPs which are allowed to connect to this SSH port for the time being, or unless the connection is disconnected or whatnot. And yeah, so this is basically a way to enter a PIN on the server, so the server actually gives you access to a different port to a different service. And there are several ways to do it. You can do it like with UDP ports, you can do it with some authentication service somewhere, you can do it with ICMP pings with specific data in it. Yeah, it's like imagination is basically your boundary here. So that's port knocking. What is the best data structure for the fastest search of large data sets in CPP? For example, a collection of 1 million strings or other large objects. So I guess it depends, like what exactly do you mean by fastest search? What are you searching for? Are you trying to determine whether a given string is already in the set, or do you want to get all the strings, for example, which meet specific criteria? It really boils down to what you want to do exactly with it. If you want to check if the given string is in a given set, then you can use, well, an unordered set, for example, for it, or unordered map if it's supposed to be a key by default. Yeah, these are quite decent containers, I would say. If you have something more specific, like for example, you need to find all the strings which meet a specific, which for example have the word ASDF in them, then it gets more complicated, and you might want to do some form of indexing, and this boils down to basically custom structures, so you cannot use the built-in ones are really standard, and for more advanced stuff, you need to create your custom structure, and that's why on universities you learn how to create some custom structures in the end, right? So that's a quick answer to a complicated question, I guess. Okay, now let's. I already said I'm going to find a fuzzer. So what kind of fuzzer I'm going to use? I guess I'm going to use lib fuzzer, because why not? So lib fuzzer. Let's. Yeah, I think I have clang here. Please tell me I have clang. I have clang. Which clang do I have? 3.8. That's not good. Maybe I should use AFL after all. Yeah, but clang is pretty well. Both are pretty cool. So okay, let's see if it actually knows this. Let's do clang plus c lang plus clang plus, and now there is no fuzzer. I have too old version. I probably can do it with Docker, right? Again, AFL it is, or Docker clang. Is there a clang Docker image with, well, this isn't too new either. So yeah, maybe no. Let's go for AFL fuzz then. Okay, how do you download this? Latest tarball, perfect. Okay, so I unpacked it. I probably shouldn't have unpacked it here though. Let's do this. Is it called EN? Yes, 41. I'm going to, I guess, go to this directory here. Because if I remember correctly, AFL actually requires some symbolic links, and I'm on my Windows partition here, so yeah, as you can see, this is like all messed up. So given that it's all messed up, I'm actually not going to use that AFL directory. I'm going to copy the AFL.tar there. So I have this AFL tar file, and I'm going to copy this to this directory. Yeah. Okay, and it's here, so okay, let's compile it. So make dash, yeah. Yes. Alright, oh, that was shorter than I expected. Perfect. Now I have this AFL G++, which I will have to use to compile my stuff, and yeah. So this and this. It doesn't work because I forgot that there's actually a directory here, and the directory name is AFL-252B. Okay. Okay, so it seems to work. I guess I'm going to echo this into like go.sh. I'm not going to fuzz it yet because again, it's a network service and AFL will try to feed it files, so I'm not going there yet. And I have this. Dash. Okay. So now I can start creating the harness, and the harness is actually going to be a modification of this. Now, there are two ways to go about it. One way to go about it is to try to be smart and create a script or whatnot, which actually does takes the CPP file, like this main CPP file, and tries to modify it, patch it in a way that it applies the harness. I'm just going to modify this file, but I'm going to make a copy of it first. So I made a copy of this file. Yeah, it's here. And now having the copy, I'm going to just modify this file. So to modify this file, or maybe, you know what, I'm going to rename the copy into server harness, and I'm going to use that file. Okay, so I'm going to close this to not make any more stupid mistakes. I'm going to here change this to harness. I am going to use this, but I'm going to use this in a funny way. Okay, I lied. I'm not going to use this. So let's start modifying the file. I'm basically going to hook up to the network interface. I'm going to change netsock in a way that actually gets data from a file. And the file is supposed to be probably provided here, so I'm going to do int argc char argv. And furthermore, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to remove this, I'm going to keep this, I'm going to remove this, keep this, and remove this. Perfect. Main is going to change in a way that is going to basically read a file and somehow give it to a class, and the class is going to emulate netsock in a way that gets data from a stream of bytes. Quick question, why not simply run a default Docker image with bin bash as entry point and install Clang? I could do it, but I'm not sure if the default Docker image has the version of Clang which actually has libfuzzer in it. So yeah, and I don't want to experiment with it. I might fall back to it if AFL doesn't work though. What's your opinion on the privacy-oriented web search engine like DuckDuckGo? I sometimes use it, but not too frequently actually. Well, you know, I work for Google, right? So they have all the information they need on me anyway. So I'm just using Google, because that way I actually trust where the data is, and that like my friends at work are keeping the data safe. So yeah, I guess in my case it's better to use Google because I know where the data is and I'm actually trust the company. But I guess you should ask that question to somebody who does not work at Google, because they might have different opinions, experience, and so on. Like for example, Mormos, but he's not streaming today, then maybe Live Overflow. Okay, I was doing something important. I was changing this. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do if argc is not equal to 2, then printf usage this file turn 1. Okay, so we actually exit with a meaningful note. Now I'm going to remove this and I'm going to create a class in netsock. I'm going to create my own interface, which is going to be, if you've written any unit tests and so on, it's going to be a mock of the class. So it's going to pretend to be that class, but it's going to behave differently in a way I actually like it to pretend. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's do new view into file. This is the option I'm looking for. Okay. Now I'm going to create a netsock instance here, C, and I'm going to call the function read blob from file. There is no such function in the original one, but it's going to be in this one. And I'm going to do this, and then handler actually needs a pointer, so I'm going to do this. Perfect. Now, public. I don't want to have any errors in the netsock class. Like this code which I've written here is supposed to be buggy, but my mock should not introduce any errors because these are going to be false positives, and introducing false positives into the code is not something you want to do, so I'm going to include some more stuff like this, and actually use this. So in the private scope I'm going to add where am I going to put the data? I will decide in a second. Include yeah. So I'm going to start with a vector of uint8 t, and this is going to be my data. I might also have some size t pointer for like how much data did I already use. Now here I'm going to obviously get this. I should probably do like if this doesn't work, then return 1, but also output some message like what failed, because this will be useful for debugging if the fuzzer doesn't actually work correctly. So this is going to be return a boolean value, and it's taking that can be this name of the file. I'm going to implement it inline because why not? So file f open f name, obviously f open read binary, and if f is null pointer, then if it's null pointer, then return false. Otherwise, I need to know how large the file is, and then I need to read it into the vector. So this is going to be for the size. And fseek. I need to jump to the end of the file, so seek and. Now I need to check it, the size of the file. This is like the default way to check a file size using this interface. It doesn't look too good, but it works, so whatever. And return true, but what I still need to do is I need to take that data vector and resize it to the z size, and now I need to read the data, so freed into data 0. So this is actually overloaded in a vector, so this will be fine. 1zf. Okay, I'm not checking here whether I read enough data. I am assuming I am, because I'm working on a local file. It should not fail. This should be fine. Okay, perfect. So I'm reading the data, and now I'm actually, what I can do is I can just compile it, and it will obviously fail while compiling, but that's fine. It says I do not have this function, this function, and this function, and this function, so I need to implement these functions. Well, this is like read and write all, so it's not too much. So what should the write all function do in this case? I might use that data if it would be important. If it would be like a, for example, if I would be fuzzing an IRC server, the first thing you see when you connect on an IRC server, which let's do it. Let's connect to IRC freenode.org at 6667, which is IRC port. You see this stuff, but this is not important. Here I should like put nick ginveil ASDF, and yeah, it checks something more, and it should actually give me, let's see if it does, or maybe I don't remember the IRC protocol. But it actually at some point should give me ping me with a number, and I need to pong it that number. No, seriously, what do I else need to do? I thought on this only nick, so my mistake. Now I'm curious. What did I forget? Wiki IRC. Show me the IRC protocol. This is the Polish version. I probably want the English version, which is probably more verbose. Okay, nick RFC IRC. User, I probably yeah, user. Okay, user ASDF. Perfect. That means I'm too slow. So let's repeat it. This user. Okay. Let's see if it works. Okay, not enough parameters. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Not enough parameters. User 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, perfect. It actually connected me without asking me for a ping. I'm surprised. Let's try a different network, because this doesn't cooperate with me. This is a Polish IRC network. So nick ginveil ASDF and user 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, please wait, processing your connection. Come on, I need an example. Thank you, Dohan, by the way, for reminding me about the user. If you're wondering what the IRC server is doing, is scanning my ports probably to check if I'm not a proxy. So I'm going to give it a second. I don't need this. I can minimize this. And yeah, so okay, it doesn't like me. Okay, no examples then. Again, it would probably reply with like ping and some number here, and I would have to reply with a pong and the exact same number here. So in this case, if I'm writing this harness, I would actually need the write all function, which write all function for the harness is actually you should receive the data from it. And I should receive that data. In that case, that being said, I absolutely don't need to receive any data. So I'm just going to copy paste it, and this function is not going to do absolutely anything. I don't want any warnings about this either, so yeah. So this is fine. Now, the read function, on the other hand, is something that my harness should actually write to. Therefore, I do need to implement it in a mocking way, like as a mock. So, yeah. And please note that I'm only instrumenting the network interface. I'm not going deep into the application. Try QuakeNet. Okay, try QuakeNet. QuakeNet. KrzaQ, can you actually give me the address of a QuakeNet? I don't remember it. I've used it only a few times, so QuakeNet. Oh, here we go. QuakeNet.org. Okay. See QuakeNet.org. Okay, let's do this. No. Yeah. Oh yeah, here it is. Perfect. This is exactly what I needed to show. Thank you, KrzaQ. And I do have to reply here with a pong saying exactly the same thing before it connects me. But my username is invalid. Okay, yeah. But still, this is what I wanted to show, so thank you, KrzaQ, for pointing me to the correct network. Now, what I need to do here is I need to, into the buffer, I need to read up to the size data. That being said, I might not do it. What I'm going to do in case of read, I'm going to grab 1 byte from the file, which tells me how much data I'm going to read from the file. I'm probably going to shorten it to like 5 bits though. And then I'm going to grab that amount of data from the file, and I'm going to put it in the buffer. So, let's do it like this. First, size t sz, which is the actual size I'm going to put into that buffer, and I'm taking it from data. So if data is already empty, then I probably shouldn't do any, probably shouldn't get any data from there. I'm going to create a new function here, which is going to return a single byte. It's going to be slow, but I don't care. Get byte. Okay, and it's going to do something like this. What is it going to do? Okay, this is getting kind of funny. So, no, I guess I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it here. So, if data is equal to data size is equal to I, so I already used all the data, that means there is nothing more to read, so the connection disconnects. This returns 0, and the word of network sockets means of network sockets. It means the host has disconnected, your peer has disconnected. So this is what I'm going to do here. In case I run out of data, that means that I disconnected, and I'm actually not checking anywhere here in the harness whether I actually the second whether disconnected, right? So sz is equal to, now I need to grab some data. I know there is at least 1 byte, right? So I'm going to grab that byte. It's called I, that's a stupid name for a in-class variable, but okay, let's suffer through it. IDX. This would fail terribly. IDX, and I'm also didn't initialize it yet, so I'm going to initialize it after reading the data, which makes most sense, I guess. Here, I'm going to actually cut it short to I guess how much data I have in the file. That should be fine. Yeah, let's do it like this. So if data size index is less than size, so actually if size is greater than whatever data we have left, in that case SZ is actually going to be this, so I'm going to give it at the most this data. That being said, I'm missing something here, I'm missing this. And here, yeah. Okay, this is fine. It might be 0, by the way, it might be 0. So now I'm going to copy data to the buffer. I'm copy into the buffer from data idx and using this, and I'm going to copy SZ data, and I'm going to also return SZ. This is fine. This is obviously casted to an integer. It will issue some warnings, but this is fine. So this way, the protocol I have in my file, in my data file, is actually going to be 1 byte, which tells you the size of the packet and then the packet. And this kinda emulates a network interface. It doesn't emulate the timing, but it kinda emulates the network interface. We obviously easily might add emulating the timing here by, for example, saying that the, in this case, bottom or like top 2 bits say what's the delay, meaning in milliseconds, for example. And we would actually sleep here for that delay, and then just send the data. So that might emulate network timing, and a fuzzer would actually could, in a predictable way, this is the important part here, in the predictable way it might well, change the timing data, and if we find some bug which is related to timing, it would actually like a race condition, for example, it would actually, we would have a reliable test case which we could feed into the harness, and it would reliably reproduce. So that way it would work better than actually having a proxy, or emulating reliably timing bugs with a proxy is rather hard. And I think this implementation is actually enough for us to for this to work. So let me try if I can compile it. Memcopy was not declared. My apologies, because I forgot stdlib.h, which lim, no, not lim, lib. Okay, then I have on 20, sorry, what? String? Is it in string? Yeah, better. Now, ignoring, yes, I know, I don't care. Again, as I said, I don't think there's going to be any problem with me not checking the size of reading in that case, but I obviously should not. Yeah, you should not add this type of stuff in your production code. This is good for like my showcasing a demo, but you shouldn't add this to production code. Unless you have obviously very, very good reasons. So okay, I have the instrumented code. Now I can, I guess, run AFL on it. So how do I run AFL? Does anyone know how to run a AFL? I guess I need to grab this, and I need to do fuzz. And I obviously don't remember the parameter order, so let's see. There's an input directory and output directory, so let's create... I'm actually going to use this directory because AFL likes to name files in a weird way, and it doesn't really work well with my NTFS. So it likes to use the colons, for example, colons, and NTFS, my Windows file system, doesn't like colons because it uses them for alternative data streams, obviously. So in, out, yeah, that's fine. I don't think I could use such names on Windows, by the way, due to legacy reasons. So input directory is going to be this thing. Yeah, let's do it like this. This way I can actually... Yeah, output directory is going to be the same, but without. Then what else do I need to do? Location to read by the fast program. It reads from standard input. I don't want it to read from standard input. I want it to read Now from file, how do I... Does it matter? Is this like an explicit file? That's fair. In all honesty, I'm not using KFL like, you know, daily, because I have a custom setup, but what I know about AFL, I sometimes am using it though. What I know about AFL is that Michael actually provided really good documentation, so let's look for the good documentation, or let's say verbose documentation. AFL fuzz and how to run it. Okay, quick start guide. This is exactly what I need. Maybe I'm going to just change it to work from standard input instead of looking through the docs. I guess it just needs a name, so yeah, this will work in that case. Now, timeout, memory limit doesn't matter, quick and dirty doesn't matter. I have this instrumented. Okay, so yeah, let's see if this works. I do need to app to be fast, right? So path to the app, and path to the app is going to be rather easy. It's going to be a out in this directory. Okay, so let's see if this works. It doesn't want... no, I cannot run it in this directory. Because if I run it in this directory and it relies on the core file, because this is a Windows directory, actually it will not work. I have to copy this. So let's do it like this. Copy a out to this directory. And now cd this directory, and I'm going to do everything else from this directory. Simplifies a lot of things. Okay, and a out. Yeah. Okay, now I guess I need to do this. And I need to do it from root. So please excuse me for a second. Okay, done. Let's try it. It looks what? No usable test case. That's because I don't have any test case, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to give you an A in a file called A. Perfect. Now go. Okay. All set, ready to roll. Perfect. It works. No new path. That's bad. Check syntax. Maybe I should give it like 2 files. Let's see what it actually puts in the output file. What does it process, and then we can actually queue. Yeah. We can reason on it. Why didn't you mutate it? Are there any questions? Okay, there are some questions. Just a quick mind blower. 1 Bitcoin is almost $14,000. That's crazy. That's a mind blower, Dohan. I agree. Are there going to be 2 parts? What do you mean by 2 parts? Do you mean 2 parts of this? Probably no, because next week Ange Albertini, aka Korkami, is going to be my guest, and we're going to talk about what are we going to talk about? Binary stuff, basically, because this is what he specializes in. And then there's going to be a break, and I will get back to streaming in the new year, so probably making a second part after such a long time doesn't really make too much sense, so probably no. Unless there's demand, obviously. Oh, Polska IRC PL drops connections from IPs outside of Poland. That's what Soltis says. Yeah, you're right, I should use the StealthNet for that. What do you think about theories that Intel Management Engine was has backdoors? Maybe, who knows? I'm not saying like, no, this is like conspiracy theories, it would never happen, because, well, you know, for example, NSA did weird stuff in the past, so they might actually go to Intel and ask them, hey, like, well, if you don't want to put a backdoor in the CPU, why not put it in this new chip you have? So who knows? Okay, this obviously doesn't work. Maybe it wants a bigger file. Let's give it a bigger file. It should actually create larger files for itself, though. Okay. It crashes. No, what happens? So, please examine and delete. Okay. Oh, wait, I'm totally in the wrong directory. Okay, let's do it like this, and now let's retry. This is weird. Why doesn't it... It probably doesn't find my file. Why doesn't it find my file? It probably means, I know what it means. It means here that I forgot this. Oops, the program crashed. Let's go back to the old one. Old one, and try now. It resulted in a timeout. Did it result in a time? Yeah, it actually requires me to have a good... I'm going to put a Q in there because Q actually exits immediately. So that should be fine. It shouldn't result in a timeout, it should exit. Why do you say it results? Oh no, wait, I need to put -en, and here I need one. Okay, next, because I need to follow the protocol. Yeah, sorry, the fuzzer I usually use doesn't require me to have a working test case. Oh, that totally didn't work. So let's try this. Oh, come on, I'm giving you... Okay, maybe this. Yeah, okay, now I have 1 byte and the byte, and it should actually work now. Okay, no more. Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, something seems to work-ish. Yeah, okay, something seems to work, so that's good. Let's see what it actually gives us. So are there any questions? Yes, there is a question. Thank you for your channel, it's great. Thank you for the kind words. Do you know this event in Poland, sillyventure.eu, is this week and this weekend? I and some people coding with some old Atari machines at Gdańsk. Yes, I know of it, and it's somewhere on my list to visit it someday. I've been reading some news about it for some time now, so Yeah, I know it exists, but yeah, I need to be in Poland at the same time when it happens. Well, it actually has music. Yeah, it's basically like a 8-bit demo party-ish thing, I guess. Sweet. Yeah, I really want to visit it someday. Okay, so AFL already found some crashes. I guess we can see what actually is in the queue in hangs and crashes. What kind of crashes did it find? It found 2 crashes which are unique. So let's see what's inside these files. So hex dump-c id o. Okay. And first 3 bytes, something, then 256 bytes, I guess. And it's supposed to crash my app. So we can check if it actually does it. We can check by, well, I guess just running the app, right? So the app is in this directory, and we can just give it this file, and it should reproduce it, and we should be able to, for example, debug it. Yeah, it crashes, and it also displayed that. Is that? It's a buffer overflow detected. That's nice. How come it's a buffer overflow detected? It's quite weird though. I didn't expect it to. Okay, so let's see what happens. GDB out. Let's run ID 1. Oh, come on. Okay, and where is this coming from? From the mem copy. But why? Didn't I? It might be a bug in my code actually, like in the harness. Is this code correct? If size which I want to copy is greater than whatever is available. Oh yeah, this is a bug on my part. So I should stop with fuzzer, because we don't need to rerun it. If the size, if sz is actually greater than size, then sz is supposed to be equal size, because yeah, it's this size. Because the buffer is not big enough. So this is my mistake in the harness. So let's not be too happy with this code yet. And I'm going to, I guess, cd out and remove everything. Okay. And now in the in directory, I still have only this file. Perfect. So now I can rerun it. Now I'm going to actually do one more thing. I'm going to create a file which I'm also going to copy, but it's going to be compiled with GDB, and it's going to be like this, and it's going to call dbg, or like a dbg, like a debug version of it. I'm also going to copy it here. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to restart it, I guess. So where's my window with, yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, this should be better. Okay, so there are some more questions, which is perfect, because it should actually run a little longer before it finds crashes now, because it needs to go through the whole initialization routine, through this part, which, yeah, it takes some tries to get through it. Okay, so are there any questions? There are. How fuzzers operate on corpus to be efficient? So it depends what you exactly mean, because I'm not sure if there's actually a good reason. So one way what AFL does, it tries for the corpus to be as small as possible. So each file should be as small as possible, and the corpus should be as small as possible. I'm not sure if that's the correct approach, or if for example using larger corpuses doesn't allow you to sorry. Yeah, sorry. So Yeah, or maybe like if larger files wouldn't be in some cases able to reach some paths which smaller files would not. For example, if any functionality in an application does run only if a file is big. Anyway, so yeah, AFL corpus management is one thing. One thing to remember when so I'm struggling a little to answer your question because your question is pretty broad. As in, what does it mean operate on corpus, right? Does it, do you mean corpus optimization before fuzzing, during fuzzing? Do you mean handling new samples which come into the fuzzer from genetic mutations which prove to find a different path, and so on. So, so yeah, it's I guess if you could make a question a little more detailed, then I might be able to provide a decent answer, because this answer wasn't decent. So yeah, just let me know what exactly do you mean. Okay, what if someday there will be a vulnerability in Bitcoin that would make it make this really cheap to mine? So I think Miki actually addressed that question on the last stream. If you missed last stream, it was about Bitcoin, and I had a guest, Michela, who is an expert on it, on the topic. And what he said, answering this kind of question, is that they actually already have a soft fork ready to switch to a different hashing mechanism, so that it, it remains hard to mine. And I guess the question is, your question is a little about what if it happens like instantly, like suddenly one mine or one miner is able to like get each block in like every second. That would be quite hilarious, and a soft fork would take some time. So yeah, that would be quite hilarious to watch. I think the person would get really rich really fast, or the Bitcoin would just collapse. But it's, as you know, it's like, I think I would probably sit on a bench with popcorn and enjoy the show. Is there an AFL library to use some of AFL's feature? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think so, but I mean, in the end, AFL is open source, so you might be able to use some features just digging around the code. But I'm not an expert on AFL by any means. Hey, Honorary Bot, sorry for the off topic, but do Dragon Sector hate me now after I got them lost in Moscow? Did you get them lost in Moscow? I didn't hear that story. So if I didn't hear that story, that means that either they are still lost in Moscow and didn't tell me about it, or or you didn't get them lost enough. Hagen Vale, I'm organizing a CTF in my university. Can you give me some advice on how to make challenges? Okay, so I can give you two advices. First advice is, do not make the challenges too hard. A good challenge doesn't mean a hard challenge. There are some really awesome challenges which were not hard challenges. So keep that in mind, but it's not for the organizer, it's not about making the hardest challenge you can imagine. It's about making a fun challenge. And I guess like another thing here is that be sure that the challenge does not involve any guessing. Well, too much guessing. If an educated guess works, that's fine. If like you need random guessing, then it doesn't work. An example of bad guessing, which people don't like on CTFs, is I'm going to do a steganography challenge, and I'm going to do it by looking for a random application on the internet which does steganography for the given format. That will, and because this task basically boils down to find the application or guess which application did the creator use, and that's not really technical work, and it's also guessing. So that's an example of bad guessing, so don't do that. There are some things like, for example, if you have a PHP, then guess the vulnerability isn't really guessing, because that's looking for vulnerabilities, you do have to take some educated guessing. So that's good guessing, for example. And the second thing is test the challenges. I mean, really, if you think the challenge works, still test it, because you know, real life and in theory it works. These are like two different things, and you can find like really stupid and funny mistakes you've made during testing. So be sure to test the challenge. And I guess that's about it. Yeah. And also you can look on the internet. There are some guides on how to make a good CTFs. I think PPP published one. I'm pretty sure some other teams as well. And thank you for making a CTF. CTFs are awesome. Did you take into consideration that these are network packets and not files, like they split up and stuff? Yes, I guess this is what I was talking about the whole stream. But so unless you mean no, but yeah, the format which I semi-invented here is actually going to emulate this well. It's not going to emulate the timing, but it could emulate the timing as well. I could really easily add timing emulation to it, but I'm not going to do it. Like just adding a sleep based on some input on the file. Your CPU is working really hard, 103%. Yes, this is a hard-working CPU. I wonder if this is because of the way AFL works, or because it's counting hyper-threading in a weird way, or because it's a virtual CPU in the end, because this is a virtual machine. More threads. Yeah, I don't want to. I want, you know, so you still can see the stream. If I would run it in parallel, then I would probably kill my machine. So let's not do it. Let's not go there. We have already 4 new edges, so it should. It looks like it's getting through the initialization, or it's close to getting through it. Let's go to the out and see what we have in the queue. In the queue we have some files, and what files are these? It didn't work as well. Cut. Let's just cut the now. Okay, let's do it like this. For I in whatever files are in the directory starting with ID, do echo the I don't know, echo something the file name, and then hex dump -c and the file name, and then yeah. So, what do we have here? Okay, this is the original file. Then it tried to insert some bytes. Yeah, it tries random stuff. It doesn't, obviously the fuzzer doesn't know, but hey, a given byte is like the length, and then there's the data. It doesn't have to know it. And given enough iterations, it will basically work through it. So, is it, I guess it went through an edge here. Ish, there is no size, so it still might have went through an edge here though. And Q, it has exited correctly probably. It doesn't seem it's getting where it should, but yeah, I can leave it running and we can still get some questions. And I guess in the end I can just let it run through the night and publish on my blog whether it did find the crashes in the end or not. Okay, so Igor says, I mean, how do fuzzers operate on corpus during fuzzing? How to select samples and replace them during tests with better ones? I guess fuzzers do it. It's a good question. So dump fuzzers don't really change the corpus, but I guess you're asking about genetic fuzzing and genetic fuzzers. And again, AFL does it kind of like this, that if and I might be mistaken here, but the idea is give or take the same. If you find a sample, a mutated sample, which reaches the same edges, the same paths that that some other sample, which is already in the corpus, reached before, but the new sample is smaller than that one, then just replace the old one with the new one. So that's the most basic operation you can do for optimization. And then, obviously, if you find a sample which has at least, for example, one new edge, which is already not in the corpus, then just add it to the corpus. And these are the most basic operations in fuzzing, which both optimize the corpus a little and yeah, and basically also add to the corpus. Now, I guess there might be some talk whether it's worth doing this optimization, the size optimization with each sample. Maybe it would be worth to like gather new optimistic samples and then do a merge, and it would actually yield better results. So in the end, you can experiment with it. Apart from that, one important thing to remember is that if you have a corpus from previous fuzzing of a given application, for example, you have Adobe PDF Reader, right? And you have a corpus of PDFs created by fuzzing Adobe PDF Reader, and then you fuzz, for example, Foxit Reader. Then what you get at the end after fuzzing Foxit Reader is not an superset of the previous corpus, because Foxit Reader and Adobe Reader have different features implemented. Especially Foxit Reader has less features implemented. That means if it would actually, after like running the samples through Foxit Reader, it will determine that some samples are duplicates because they are actually reaching only the same edges, where the edges would be actually this feature is not implemented. So at the end, after fuzzing Foxit Reader, you get a corpus which is a good corpus for Foxit Reader, but not a good corpus for fuzzing Adobe Reader. So you have to keep this corpora separate and well, just add them together. And when fuzzing a new target, use like a concatenation of both corpuses, and that should be fine. I don't know if I answered your question, but let me know. According to Merkel-Damgard, it is possible to calculate the first chunk by offer and ask somebody else to calculate the rest of chunks to combine it at the end. I do not understand the question. Given that there's Merkel there, then it might be a question for Miki, but Miki is not here, so I just cannot answer that question. Cool. So are we still waiting? Oh, there is a new edge, so I guess we can go through it, like see what now do we have here. So this is getting, I guess some of the stuff should be getting to the, yeah, especially the new ones. This one might be already getting to or close to the, sorry, is it, which one is it? Are we looking for AB or are we looking for, oh, yeah, it might be hitting this. And it might be hitting this edge because of, while this is the number of bytes, it might somehow, due to the amount of reads are made and so on, actually hit. Oh, I might have another mistake here. Now I realized it. Yeah, here. There is a mistake. The mistake is stupid. Okay, let's run it again. Maybe it will go faster this time. Are there any questions, by the way? If there are any questions, we can still chat a little. Okay. Yeah, this should be fine now. I don't know how I forgot about it, sorry. This isn't my day today. Okay. Let's run it. Results in a timeout. Why doesn't result in a timeout? It shouldn't result in a timeout. Now I have the debug version though, so I can do this. And yeah, indeed, it does result in a timeout. Why? It reads it, and it set okay to then read. And where do you actually? Yeah, it's really a stream about debugging. Run it. Where are you? You are in harness at 98. Here, but how do you get here? You should actually get here to break, because buffer should be I'm going to actually add the checks whether it has disconnected here, because it might also be breaking stuff, at least in one place. Let's do this, let's do this. Okay, it seems to do timeout as well. No, it actually works. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is better. Yeah, this is way better. I still wonder, it actually should have just quit. Why didn't it quit? Doesn't matter. Let's see what paths did we find. Yeah, and Q, and for... No. This is exactly what I don't need right now. I need this one. Okay, yeah, this is way better. It, like, as you can see, it really fast got to some quite... Where? Why doesn't... Is it using some dictionary? It's quite funny. Parallel. Okay. Yeah, it's probably already... it will... Oh, where did it get? It's stuck now on something. Yeah, AB is here, which is good. This is good. If it starts experimenting with AB, it means it's pretty close to... Yeah, that's fine. I would probably have to debug this harness a little more, because I'm still not sure if it works correctly. Oh, there are new edges, so maybe it does work correctly. Yeah, here. That's like first two letters. Maybe it will get another letter in soon. Okay, another question. Tips for making a reverse engineering CTF challenge. So, well, what I said already, right? What I said about testing and about not making it super hard applies. Now, there is one critical thing about reverse engineering challenges, is that usually a reverse engineering challenge, not always, but usually, involves actually having some kind of, you have to enter a password, and it's checked against a hash. And you have to be 100% sure that whether the hash is going to have any collisions or not have any collisions. If it's going to have collisions, then you have to actually take that into account when the player finds one password which works correctly with the challenge but is not a valid flag. What do you do then? The usual approach to this is to have a web service which takes any working password which generates the correct hash and outputs the flag to the player. Or be sure to have a hash which actually has no collisions in, like for example, check the length, right? And if you want the length of a flag to be 20 characters, then make sure that you are using a hash good enough which will not have any collisions in for strings which are 20 characters, which usually means have a hash which is larger than that. For example, a 128-byte hash, why not? And that way the player will only be able to get one correct solution, and problem solved. Because I seriously saw way too many CTFs where I get a password, and if the password works with a challenge, and then it doesn't work as a flag, or it's like it's ASCII but it doesn't have the flag format, and the flag format, even if I give it, then it's totally weird and doesn't work as a flag after all. So then I go to the organizers, and the organizers are like, yeah, look harder. So I start bugging them, like saying that no, you have like multiple solutions and so on, and after 2 hours they say, yeah, you're actually right, so yeah, like we're going to change the challenge or something, so yeah, please don't go that way. Be sure that your hash either doesn't have any collisions or it has, or you have a service which actually accepts any correct password and gives you the flag. That being said, you don't have to make a hash-based or like an encryption-based reverse engineering challenge. What you can do is there is a series of challenges which are called Optimize Me, and they boil down to reverse engineering a challenge, seeing what is slow in that challenge, and after knowing what is slow in that challenge, actually having to rewrite it in a way or patch it in a way that it isn't slow anymore. And I remember at least 2 such challenges. One challenge was, it was like something calculating application for an old console, like a, you know, I don't remember which one was it. It wasn't an Xbox or a PlayStation. It was something, Cube, something like that. I seriously don't remember. And yeah, and you had to reverse engineer like some MIPS assembly there or something and optimize it and run it, get the flag basically. And Google's CTF, the qualifications this year, also had a custom architecture which was super slow, and in the end you had to understand it really well, what's going on there, and optimize it and calculate the flag. Cool. So yeah, and also like from my personal way of making reverse engineering challenges is like do a fancy graphical effect next to it, because why not? Or make it fun looking, not a console application. Also be mindful of side channel attacks, whether your challenge can be solved with a side channel attacks. Sometimes it's good to leave availability of like a different solution, right? You don't have to necessarily make it only one way to solve the challenge. It's more fun if there are multiple ways to solve the challenge. Okay, so Merkle, Damgrad divide hash in 4 chunks that are calculated separately. Okay, if that's the case, okay, we have it here. It didn't reach the fuzzer, didn't reach the interesting parts yet. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, that being said, I would have to look into it, so I'm not going to I'm going to avoid answering your question on the stream, sorry. Since I prefer not to answer on a question I have absolutely no idea about. Okay, do you need the source of an application to fuzz for this fuzzer? So for AFL, not really, whereas you can use QEMU, which is somewhere here, like AFL QEMU is a special version of QEMU user which actually allows fuzzing without having the source code. That being said, having the source code helps, and also if you want to do a harness like I did, you either need the source code or you need to do binary patching or whatever other way of hooking, like anything works. Can we see more things about networking, maybe something like exploiting firewall or how to protect against DOS or something? I'm actually not an expert in networking, so I'm not sure. I'll think if I can invite somebody who can actually say more about it, because yeah, again, I'm not fluent in networking. Tail-f on the log file. Yeah, but that's one thing we can do. Oh, there's new edge. Perfect. Let's see what edge did it find. This, I have absolutely no idea what this is. Why did it even generate a... So is there an actual log file, or do you want me to just look through the queue? Let's look through the queue. No, seriously, is there a log file? Okay. Recently on a CTF there was an Optimize Me reverse engineering challenge with Fibonacci numbers. Yeah, so with... okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, sweet. What are your preferred methods of crash triage? Do you find automation with certain tools can miss exploitable bugs? It's a good question. It depends on the target. I mean, in some cases I prefer to look through the crash myself. In some cases when there were a lot of crashes and I'm just not even going to bother writing an exploit, I'm just going to ship them to the maintainer. I usually try to use some tools which tell the maintainer, hey, this has more priority because this is probably exploitable and this is less. So depending on the job and on the task at hand. I don't understand what's the difference between Zoof tool and AFL. I don't understand either. I have no idea what's Zoof tool. It's a little older, it seems. Multi-purpose fuzzer. Okay, but I never used it. I didn't even know about it, so I'm sorry, I cannot answer your question. Sorry. Okay, I guess we can. So Honorary Bot asks if there are no more streams until the next year. No, that's not true. There is one more stream next week with Ansh Albertini about binary stuff. Cool. So I guess we can end the stream here. I'm going to let it run through the night, and see if it actually finds anything. I guess I'm going to post on Twitter any info if it finds something. And I will also upload all the code I've written today on my GitHub, so it will be there if you need it. Apart from that, there is no mission today. Sorry, I didn't actually manage to prepare it. So that's it. Thank you, KrzaQ, for being the moderator today, and thank you to you folks for being here and asking questions and also showing me where I have bugs in my code. That's really helpful. So yeah, see you next week, and have fun. Enjoy your evening or day or whatever time zone you're in, and yeah, happy hacking. Bye bye.
watching seasons change,